My hand was shaking as I held the pen over the papers that would sign away my $40 million company to my son. Then my phone buzzed. Patricia Coleman, my most trusted CFO for 15 years, had sent just 4 words. "Chad, don't sign anything." 3 days earlier, I thought I was about to fulfill every father's dream, passing the torch to the next generation. My son Tyler had been pushing for this moment for months, supported by his wife Amanda. I'd built Brooks Manufacturing from nothing, working 18-hour days in a garage, bleeding and sweating to create something that would last. I thought Tyler understood the sacrifice, the values, the responsibility. But as I sat in that lawyer's office, my phone buzzing with Patricia's desperate warning, I realized I didn't know my own son at all, and what I was about to discover would shake me to my core. My name is Chad Brooks, 63 years old. This is the story of how I learned that sometimes to save your family you have to be willing to lose everything. But before I tell you what happened next, let me know in the comments. Where are you listening from, and what time is it there? And don't forget to subscribe, because this story gets way more shocking than you think. 3 days before that moment, I built this company with my bare hands. A widower for the past 5 years since my beloved Kelsey passed. Kelsey always said I worked too hard, but she understood why. We came from nothing. Absolutely nothing. I started this business in 1985 in a rented garage with $3,000 and a dream. My first employee was myself. My second was a broken drill press I bought at a bankruptcy auction. For 2 years, I slept on a cot in that garage, living on instant ramen and black coffee because every penny went back into the business. Kelsey would bring me dinner wrapped in aluminum foil. She never complained about the smell of machine oil on my clothes or the grease under my fingernails. "You're building something that will last, Chad," she'd say. "Something bigger than us." She was right. Brooks Manufacturing grew from that garage to a $40 million precision parts company. We supply components to aerospace, medical devices, automotive. When Boeing needs parts that can't fail at 30,000 feet, they call us. When heart surgeons need valves that will beat for 80 years, they trust our precision. I always planned to pass this legacy to Tyler, my only child, the son I raised to understand hard work, integrity, and the weight of responsibility that comes with success. Tyler learned the business from the ground up. As a kid, he'd spend summers in the factory, watching the machines, asking questions. I thought he understood what we'd built here, what his mother and I sacrificed. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Tyler grew impatient, critical, especially after he married Amanda 2 years ago. But I was willing to look past all that. After all, every generation thinks they can do better than the last. But what did I do wrong? Tyler graduated Harvard Business School with honors. I was so proud I framed his diploma and hung it in my office right next to a photo of that first garage. Full circle, I thought. From nothing to everything in 1 generation. When he came back to work full-time at Brooks Manufacturing, I gave him every opportunity to learn. Started him in operations, then sales, then strategic planning. I wanted him to understand every aspect of the business before taking over. But Tyler was always in a hurry. "Dad, your methods are too slow," he'd say. "We need to scale faster. Automate more, streamline operations." He had all these modern business theories, fresh from his MBA program. I listened. Sometimes I even agreed. Change isn't always bad. Then he met Amanda Richardson at some networking event. Beautiful, charming, ambitious. They dated for 8 months before Tyler proposed. I liked her at first. She seemed intelligent, interested in the business, always asking thoughtful questions about our operations, our competitors, our financial structure. Their wedding cost me $150,000. I didn't mind. My only son was starting his life, and I wanted it to be perfect. Amanda's family seemed nice enough, though they were vague about their own business interests. After the wedding, I noticed changes in Tyler. He became more demanding, more critical of my decisions. Amanda was always whispering in his ear during family dinners, during company meetings. She'd smile sweetly when I looked their way, but something felt calculated about it. Tyler started questioning everything. Budget allocations, vendor relationships, personnel decisions I'd been making successfully for decades. "Dad, you're being too cautious," became his constant refrain. "We're missing opportunities while you overthink everything." The criticism stung, but I told myself this was normal. Young people are supposed to challenge the old guard. Maybe Amanda was giving him confidence to speak up, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was a little too interested in our internal operations. Someone is training Tyler against me. 6 months ago, I made the decision. Tyler was 28, old enough to take responsibility. I'd been running Brooks Manufacturing for almost 40 years. It was time to step back and let the next generation lead. I called my attorney, Jonathan Mills, the same lawyer who'd helped me incorporate the business back in the 80s. I want to set up a succession plan, I told him. Something comprehensive. Legal protections for the business, tax advantages, the whole package. Jonathan nodded. Smart thinking, Chad. But I recommend we include some safeguards. Fiduciary responsibility clauses, breach of duty provisions. You never know what the future holds. I almost laughed. Jonathan, this is my son we're talking about. Tyler would never do anything to hurt the business. But Jonathan insisted. Chad, I've seen families torn apart by money. Even good kids can make bad decisions under pressure. These protections aren't about not trusting Tyler. They're about protecting him from making mistakes that could destroy everything you've built. So we drafted the documents. Complex succession paperwork with built-in protections. Multiple signature requirements for major financial decisions. Automatic review clauses if company debt exceeded certain thresholds. Something called a dead man switch that could freeze operations if suspicious activity was detected. I signed every page, thinking I was being overly cautious, but Jonathan was thorough, and I trusted his judgment. Tyler's reaction surprised me. When I showed him the preliminary documents, he got defensive. Why are there so many restrictions, Dad? Don't you trust me to run the company? Son, these are just standard legal protections, I explained. Jonathan recommended them. But Tyler seemed agitated. Amanda kept scrolling through her phone during our meeting, occasionally whispering things to Tyler that made him frown. Around the same time, Patricia started mentioning irregularities. Nothing major, small discrepancies in expense reports, unusual consulting fees, Tyler authorizing payments that seemed outside normal protocols. Probably just Tyler learning the system, I told Patricia. Give him time to adjust. But I didn't know I was signing a death warrant for myself. I gave Tyler everything a father could possibly give. The $800,000 apartment in downtown Seattle. The Tesla Model S, unlimited company credit card for business development. Harvard tuition that cost me $200,000 over 2 years. The European Study Abroad program. Business conferences in Tokyo, London, Singapore. When Tyler wanted to learn about emerging markets, I sent him to a leadership seminar in Switzerland. When he said he needed to understand venture capital, I paid for a course at Stanford that cost $15,000 for 1 week. Their wedding reception at the Four Seasons. Amanda's engagement ring, 3 carats, cost me $60,000. The honeymoon in Bali that lasted 3 weeks. I never said no, never questioned the expenses. This was my son building his future, and I wanted him to have every advantage I never had. But Amanda's appetite was insatiable. Designer handbags, first-class flights, a personal trainer, a nutritionist, spa weekends with her girlfriends that cost more than most people make in a month. Tyler justified every expense. Dad, image matters in business. We need to look successful to attract the right opportunities. Amanda would nod along, adding, Networking requires investment, Mr. Brooks. The right connections pay for themselves. I believed them. I wanted to believe them. Then the requests got bigger. Tyler needed $50,000 to invest in a cryptocurrency training program. Amanda's consulting business required startup capital. Tyler wanted to hire 3 new strategic advisors at salaries that seemed astronomical for roles I couldn't quite understand. Each time I hesitated, Tyler got frustrated. Dad, you don't understand how modern business works. While you're counting pennies, our competitors are thinking in millions. Every time I give, Tyler wants more. Amanda was masterful, I'll give her that. Her manipulation was surgical, precise, almost elegant in its cruelty. She never directly criticized me. Instead, she'd make subtle comments to Tyler while I was within earshot. Your dad's generation built differently, she'd say. They were more conservative, risk-averse, but markets move so fast now. During family dinners, she'd bring up articles about family businesses that failed because older generations couldn't adapt to change. She'd mention other young executives who were transforming their father's companies and making headlines. Tyler has such vision, she'd tell me, her hand on his arm. Sometimes I think he's held back by having to get approval for every little decision. It must be frustrating for someone with his education and insights. Tyler would nod along, his confidence growing with every word. Amanda also had an uncanny knowledge of our business operations. She'd ask detailed questions about our manufacturing processes, our vendor relationships, our client contracts. I find your industry fascinating, Mr. Brooks. How do you stay competitive with all the overseas manufacturing? Her questions always seemed innocent, but they were remarkably specific. Profit margins, proprietary technologies, exclusive supplier agreements, information that would be valuable to competitors. When I mentioned this to Kelsey's sister, Margaret, during Sunday dinner, she frowned. Chad, how much does Amanda actually know about your business? She's family, Margaret. Of course she's interested. But Margaret wasn't convinced. Just be careful. Some people are very good at appearing innocent while gathering information. I dismissed Margaret's concerns. She'd never liked Amanda anyway. But looking back, Amanda's questions were like a careful audit. She was mapping our entire operation, learning our vulnerabilities, understanding exactly how much the company was worth. Why does Amanda want me out of the picture? Tyler's transformation wasn't sudden. It was gradual, like watching a photograph develop in slow motion. Each week, each month, he became a little more hostile, a little more dismissive. It started with small corrections. If I suggested a vendor, Tyler would immediately propose alternatives. If I recommended a conservative approach to expansion, Tyler would advocate for aggressive growth strategies that made my stomach clench. Dad, your instincts were right for the 80s and 90s, he'd say during strategy meetings. But we're competing in a different world now. Digital transformation, artificial intelligence, global supply chains. Your experience doesn't necessarily apply. The words stung because there was a grain of truth in them. Technology had changed manufacturing. I'd spent the last 5 years scrambling to understand concepts that Tyler seemed to grasp intuitively. But what hurt most was the tone. Tyler wasn't asking for my wisdom anymore. He was tolerating my presence. Amanda was always nearby during these conversations, taking notes on her phone, occasionally nodding encouragingly when Tyler challenged my decisions. She'd smile at me apologetically, as if to say, "You know how passionate he gets about business." Our weekly father-son lunches became Tyler lecturing me about outdated management styles, while Amanda texted from the next table. When I'd try to share stories about the early days of the company, Tyler would check his watch impatiently. Dad, I've heard these stories. What matters is where we're going, not where we've been. The respect was gone. The gratitude was gone. The love, I hoped it was still there, buried underneath all this ambition and frustration. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was coaching Tyler, feeding him arguments, teaching him to see me as an obstacle rather than a mentor. Someone is training Tyler against me. 3 months before the signing, Patricia Coleman pulled me aside after a board meeting. Patricia had been our CFO for 15 years, hired when the company was still small enough that everyone knew each other's birthdays. She was methodical, careful, absolutely trustworthy. "Chad, we need to talk," she said, her voice tight with concern. "I've been reviewing the quarterly expenses, and there are some irregularities." We went to my office and closed the door. Patricia spread printouts across my desk like a detective presenting evidence. "Tyler has been authorizing unusual payments," she said, pointing to highlighted entries. "Consulting fees to companies I can't verify. Technology investments that don't match our IT plans. Conference expenses for events that don't seem to exist." My mouth went dry. "How much are we talking about?" "So far, about 200,000 in questionable expenses. But Chad, that's not the worst part." Patricia's finger moved to another column. "He's been inquiring about our credit lines, asking detailed questions about our asset valuations, our collateral positions." I studied the papers. The consulting payments were made to something called Richardson Strategic Partners. The company address led to a post office box in Delaware. "Richardson," I said slowly. "That's Amanda's maiden name." Patricia nodded grimly. "I did some research. Richardson Strategic Partners was incorporated 6 months after Tyler and Amanda's wedding. The registered agent is Amanda's father, James Richardson." James Richardson. I'd met him once at the wedding. Quiet, evasive when I asked about his business. Said something about international consulting but never gave specifics. "There's more," Patricia said. Tyler has been asking about cryptocurrency investment protocols, large-scale digital asset acquisition. He wants to know about transferring traditional assets into blockchain portfolios. The room felt cold. Tyler wasn't just learning the business, he was studying how to monetize it, how to convert our solid physical manufacturing assets into digital investments that could disappear with a few keystrokes. What Patricia is about to discover will shock me. The first public humiliation happened at our company picnic in June. Every year, Brooks Manufacturing hosts a family barbecue for employees and their families. It's a tradition I started 20 years ago to build community, to show our people that they're more than just workers, they're family. Tyler stood up during my welcome speech. Right in the middle of my remarks about teamwork and shared success, he interrupted. "Sorry, Dad, but while we're all here together, I think it's important to address the elephant in the room." His voice carried across the entire pavilion. 150 people stopped eating and turned to stare. Amanda was filming with her phone, positioned perfectly to capture both of us in the frame. "Brooks Manufacturing is stuck in the past," Tyler continued. "We're using management philosophies from the 1980s to compete in a digital economy. My father's experience is valuable, but it's also a limitation." The silence was deafening. Kids stopped playing, wives stopped chatting. Even the catering staff paused mid-service. I felt my face burn with embarrassment. This wasn't a boardroom discussion. This was my son publicly undermining me in front of people who had worked for me for decades. "Tyler," I said quietly, "perhaps we could discuss this privately." "No, Dad. Transparency is important. Our employees deserve to know that leadership recognizes the need for change." Amanda posted the video on her social media that night with the caption, "Next Generation Leadership Bringing Fresh Perspectives to Traditional Industries." The video got 4,000 views. For the first time in my career, I felt genuinely humiliated by my own son. But that was just the beginning. The board meeting was scheduled for Thursday morning in July. Standard quarterly review. I'd been running these meetings for 20 years, presenting financial results, discussing strategic initiatives, maintaining relationships with our outside advisors. Tyler asked if he could present a supplementary analysis after my remarks. I agreed, thinking he wanted to share insights about operational efficiency or market trends. I should have known better. Tyler had prepared a 40-slide presentation titled Brooks Manufacturing, Strategic Transformation for Competitive Sustainability. He'd obviously worked on it for weeks, with professional graphics, detailed market analysis, and financial projections that made my conservative approach look timid. "Ladies and gentlemen," Tyler began, "while my father has built something remarkable here, maintaining our market position requires adapting to technological disruption and evolving customer expectations." Slide after slide, Tyler systematically demolished every strategic decision I'd made in the past 2 years. He presented alternative approaches that were more aggressive, more profitable, more aligned with industry best practices. The board members, people who had trusted my leadership for decades, started taking notes and asking detailed questions about Tyler's proposals. Amanda sat in the back row, officially there as Tyler's strategic advisor, occasionally whispering suggestions when board members posed challenging questions. By the end of Tyler's presentation, I felt like an outdated relic. My own strategic vision seemed conservative to the point of being cowardly. The worst part was that Tyler's analysis was sophisticated, well-researched, compelling. Someone had clearly helped him develop arguments specifically designed to undermine my credibility. After the meeting, board member Susan Walsh approached me. "Chad, Tyler certainly has fresh insights. Very impressive." I nodded, but inside I was reeling. Tyler prepared well, so who helped? The breaking point came during what should have been a peaceful family dinner at my house in August. I'd invited Tyler and Amanda for Sunday evening, hoping to rebuild our relationship away from the office environment. I grilled salmon, opened a bottle of wine that Kelsey and I had been saving for a special occasion, set the dining room table with her good china. I wanted this to feel like family. Tyler and Amanda arrived 30 minutes late, both glued to their phones. During dinner, they barely looked up from their screens. When I tried to share a story about the early days of the company, Tyler rolled his eyes. "Dad, we've heard these stories 1,000 times. The garage, the cot, the instant ramen. We get it. You worked hard. But dwelling on the past doesn't help us solve current challenges." Amanda nodded along, still typing on her phone. Maybe it's time to think about the future instead of reliving old victories, Mr. Brooks. Tyler has such innovative ideas for the company. I felt something break inside my chest. This was my son. The boy I'd taught to ride a bicycle, helped with homework, cheered for at every baseball game, and he was treating me like an inconvenient stranger. Tyler, I'm trying to share family history. Dad, maybe it's time to think about retirement. You've earned it. 63 is old enough to step back and enjoy life. Let the next generation handle the stress of running a business. The words hit me like physical blows. Retirement wasn't a suggestion. It was a dismissal. Amanda smiled sweetly. We could set up a lovely consulting arrangement. You'd still have input, but without the day-to-day responsibilities. They'd already planned my exit strategy. What turned my son into a stranger? The executive team meeting was scheduled for Tuesday, September 15th. 12 senior managers would attend. Department heads, operations supervisors, people I'd hired and trained over the years. People who had watched me build Brooks Manufacturing from a small operation into an industry leader. The agenda was simple. Announce the succession transition. Introduce Tyler as the incoming CEO. Celebrate the next chapter of our family business. I'd been planning this moment for months. Not the humiliation that was about to come, but the proud passing of the torch. The fulfillment of every father's dream to see his son take over the family legacy. I arrived early to set up the conference room. Prepared presentation slides showing company growth, financial stability, our strong position for the future. I'd even brought champagne to toast Tyler's new role. Patricia arrived next, looking nervous. She kept glancing at her phone and checking her watch. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Chad, I need to tell you something important after this meeting. It's urgent." But there wasn't time to talk. The senior managers filed in, chatting casually, expecting a routine announcement. Tyler and Amanda arrived exactly on time, both dressed formally, both carrying folders thick with documents. Amanda positioned herself near the back corner, phone ready to record. "For family memories," she said with a bright smile. I stood up to begin my remarks. 40 years of leadership had taught me how to command a room, how to present complex information clearly, how to inspire confidence in the future. But Tyler had other plans. But Tyler had planned something else entirely. "Thank you all for being here," I began, looking around the conference table at 12 familiar faces. These people had been with me through economic downturns, supply chain disruptions, competitive challenges. We were a team. Today marks an important transition for Brooks Manufacturing. After careful consideration, I've decided to... Tyler stood up abruptly, cutting me off mid-sentence. "Dad, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think everyone here deserves honesty about what's really happening." The room went silent. 12 pairs of eyes shifted between Tyler and me, confusion replacing the relaxed atmosphere. Amanda's phone was recording from the corner, red light blinking steadily. Tyler moved to the front of the room, positioning himself between me and the team. This old-fashioned micromanaging approach is exactly what's wrong with this company. We're falling behind competitors because we refuse to embrace modern business practices. My heart started pounding. This wasn't the announcement I'd planned. This was an ambush. "Tyler," I said quietly, "perhaps we should discuss this privately." "No, Dad. Transparency matters. These people work here. They deserve to know that leadership recognizes our problems." Tyler's voice grew stronger, more confident. "We need digital transformation, automated systems, artificial intelligence integration, not another speech about garage days and instant ramen." The humiliation burned through my chest like acid. Operations manager Kelsey Chen looked mortified. Head of sales Mike Torres stared at his hands, clearly uncomfortable. "Dad, you need to step aside. You're holding us all back. 40 years of leadership, 40 years of building relationships, earning trust, creating something meaningful. And my son was dismantling it all in front of my own employees." "Tyler," I managed, my voice hoarse with shock. "This isn't the time or place." "Actually, Dad, I think it is exactly the time and place. These are our senior managers. They need to understand the vision going forward." Amanda's camera captured every moment. The satisfied expression on her face told me this was choreographed, planned, rehearsed. Tyler turned to address the team directly. "I've prepared a comprehensive strategy that will position Brooks Manufacturing for sustainable growth. Modern supply chain optimization, predictive analytics, customer relationship automation. I felt the room slipping away from me. Tyler wasn't just questioning my leadership. He was replacing me in real time, in front of my own people. Son, please. I think it's time for Dad to leave so we can have a real discussion about the future. The words hit me like a physical blow. In 40 years of business, through every challenge and crisis, I had never been asked to leave my own conference room. No one spoke. 12 senior managers sat frozen, witnessing a family destruction that had no place in a professional setting. I looked around the table at faces I'd known for years. People I'd hired, promoted, trusted. People who had built their careers at Brooks Manufacturing. They were all avoiding eye contact. Patricia's expression showed a mixture of horror and determination. She was gripping her phone tightly, her knuckles white. I stood up slowly, my legs unsteady. The walk to the conference room door felt like a death march. Behind me, Tyler was already beginning his presentation. Now that we can speak openly. As soon as I got to the parking lot, my hands were shaking as I unlocked my car. 45 minutes later, I was sitting in my kitchen, staring at a cup of coffee that had gone cold, when my phone rang. Patricia Coleman. Her voice was tight with urgency. "Chad, I need to see you immediately. Not at the office. Somewhere private. We met at a small coffee shop downtown, away from anyone who might know us." Patricia brought a thick manila folder and a laptop computer. Her face was pale, her usual composure completely shattered. "Chad, I've discovered something. Something terrible." She opened the folder and spread documents across our small table. Bank statements, loan applications, cryptocurrency transaction records. The papers covered every inch of available space. "Tyler has been forging your signature," she said quietly, "for months." I stared at the documents, but the numbers seemed to float and swim. Nothing made sense. He used company letterhead to apply for collateralized loans against Brooks Manufacturing assets. $28 million, Chad. $28 million that we don't have. My vision blurred. $28 million. More than half our company's total value. Patricia pointed to a series of transaction records. The money went into cryptocurrency investments. High-risk digital assets that lost 90% of their value within 6 weeks. I picked up one of the bank documents. The signature was mine, but I'd never seen these papers before. The forgery was nearly perfect. Tyler had obviously practiced. "There's more," Patricia continued. "He's been using your electronic signature authorization to approve additional expenses. Consulting fees, technology purchases, conference registrations that don't exist. My son had been systematically stealing from our company while publicly humiliating me for being too conservative." The irony was devastating. While I was trying to teach Tyler responsibility, he was committing felony fraud. "Chad," Patricia said softly, "there's something else. Something about Amanda. And this is not the worst part." Patricia opened her laptop and pulled up what looked like a private investigator's report. Photos, financial records, background information organized into a detailed dossier. "I hired someone to research Amanda's family," Patricia said. "Something about her story never made sense. Too many vague details. Too many coincidences." The first photo showed Amanda at what appeared to be a business conference, shaking hands with a middle-aged man in an expensive suit. Her father isn't a small-time consultant like she claimed. His name is James Richardson, and he owns Richardson Industrial, a direct competitor of ours. They've been trying to break into our market segment for 3 years. I stared at the photo. James Richardson. I'd met him once at Tyler and Amanda's wedding. He'd been evasive about his business, claiming he was between projects and working as an independent consultant. "Amanda's real name is Amanda Richardson," Patricia continued. "She never legally changed it after the marriage. Her social media accounts under her maiden name show extensive connections to our competitors, our suppliers, our clients. More photos. Amanda at industry events I'd never attended. Amanda having dinner with executives from companies that had been underbidding us on major contracts. The timeline is damning, Chad. Richardson Industrial started aggressive price competition against us exactly 6 months after Tyler and Amanda's first date. They've been winning contracts by submitting bids that are impossibly precise, like they knew our internal cost structures, industrial espionage, corporate infiltration. My son's wife was a spy. How long? I asked. Based on the evidence, the plan started before they even met.
Amanda targeted Tyler specifically. She researched his habits, his interests, his hangouts, the coffee shop where they accidentally met. She'd been going there for 2 weeks learning his schedule. I thought about Amanda's endless questions about our operations, her curiosity about our proprietary processes, her interest in our financial structure. She hadn't married my son. She'd married our company's secrets. How long have they been planning this? I drove home in complete silence. No radio, no phone calls, just the sound of my own breathing and the hum of tires against asphalt. Everything I thought I knew about the last 2 years was a lie. Tyler's sudden business sophistication,
His detailed criticisms of my management style, his comprehensive understanding of our competitive landscape. He hadn't developed these insights through natural business acumen. He'd been coached by professionals whose job was to destroy us from within. My son hadn't betrayed me out of greed or ambition. He'd been manipulated by experts who understood exactly how to exploit his insecurities. But that didn't excuse what he'd done. Fraud is fraud, regardless of motivation. I sat in my driveway for 20 minutes before going inside. Kelsey's photos smiled at me from the hallway. Our wedding day, Tyler's graduation, family vacations when he still looked at me with respect. In my study, I pulled out the corporate charter documents that Jonathan Mills had insisted on including, the fiduciary responsibility clauses, the breach of duty provisions, the automatic review triggers, all the legal protections I'd thought were unnecessary paranoia. "Thank you, Jonathan," I whispered to my empty office. I read every page carefully. 40 years of business had taught me that contracts matter, that legal language exists for exactly these situations, that preparation can save you when everything falls apart. The dead man's switch provision was particularly interesting. If suspicious financial activity was detected, the CEO could immediately freeze all company operations pending investigation. All accounts, all contracts, all operations. Complete lockdown until the truth could be established. I looked at the family photos on my desk. Tyler at 8 years old, wearing a hard hat during a factory tour, so proud to be his daddy's helper. Something cold and calculating woke up Trong Toy. That little boy was gone. The man who humiliated me today was a stranger, and strangers don't get to steal my life's work. Thursday morning, 6:30 a.m. I called Jonathan Mills at his home number. "Chad, is everything all right?" "Jonathan, I need to activate the fiduciary breach provisions in our corporate charter immediately." Silence. Then, "Chad, what's happened?" I gave him the essential facts. Forged signatures, unauthorized loans, $28 million in missing assets, criminal fraud by a company officer. Jesus Christ, Chad, I'm sorry. But I'm not surprised. Those protections exist for exactly this reason. Within 2 hours, Jonathan had drafted emergency documentation, sworn affidavits detailing the financial irregularities, legal notifications to our bank partners, injunction requests to freeze all accounts pending investigation. The 48-hour window is critical, Jonathan explained. Tyler has signing authority, but the charter requires a cooling-off period for major transactions. If he tries to transfer additional assets, we can stop him. I called Patricia next. "Execute Protocol 7, I said. Protocol 7 was something we'd established years earlier, a comprehensive financial lockdown procedure designed to protect company assets during emergencies, natural disasters, cyber attacks, hostile takeover attempts, family betrayal. Patricia understood immediately. All accounts frozen, all electronic access suspended, all contracts on hold pending review. By noon, Tyler would discover that his signing authority had been suspended. His company credit cards declined, his electronic access terminated. Every legal protection I'd built into our corporate structure was now activated against my own son. The irony was brutal. Tyler had spent months criticizing my paranoid legal preparations. Now those same preparations were the only thing standing between Brooks Manufacturing and complete destruction. Every protection clause I once thought was paranoia is now salvation. Tyler's first panicked call came at 12:47 p.m. "Dad, what the hell is happening? My corporate card was declined at lunch. IT says my system access has been suspended. Patricia won't return my calls." His voice carried a mixture of confusion and rising anger. This wasn't the confident, dismissive tone he'd used during yesterday's boardroom humiliation. "Son, we need to talk. There are some irregularities that require investigation." "What irregularities?" "Dad, I don't understand what's going on." I almost felt sorry for him. Tyler genuinely seemed bewildered. He'd been so focused on the company politics, the power struggle, the succession drama, that he hadn't considered the possibility that his financial crimes would be discovered. The $28 million in unauthorized loans, Tyler. The forged signatures. The cryptocurrency investments. Silence. Then in a much smaller voice, "How did you find out?" "Patricia discovered the irregularities during routine financial audits. Everything you've done over the past 6 months has been documented and reported to our attorneys." More silence. I could hear muffled conversation in the background. Amanda's voice, though I couldn't make out the words. "Dad, I can explain everything. It's not what it looks like. Tyler, you forged my signature on loan documents. You stole $28 million from our company. Explanations won't change the legal reality. I was trying to grow the business. The cryptocurrency investments were supposed to generate profits for expansion." Classic deflection. Tyler was framing felony fraud as entrepreneurial vision. "Meet me at the office at 4 o'clock, I said. "Bring Amanda. We're going to resolve this properly." I hung up before he could respond. Tyler still doesn't know I know about Amanda. I spent the afternoon preparing for the confrontation. The main conference room, the same space where Tyler had humiliated me 24 hours earlier, was transformed into a legal presentation center. 3 easels with poster-sized financial charts showing the pattern of fraudulent transactions. A laptop connected to a large monitor for displaying bank records and loan documents. Copies of Amanda's real identity research organized in labeled folders. Patricia arrived early with additional evidence she'd discovered. "Chad, it's worse than we thought. Tyler wasn't just stealing money, he's been sharing proprietary information." She showed me email records obtained through our IT security protocols. Tyler had been forwarding internal company documents to an encrypted email address registered to Richardson Industrial. Manufacturing processes, client lists, pricing strategies, vendor contracts, everything a competitor would need to systematically undercut our business. This isn't just fraud, Chad, it's corporate espionage. Jonathan Mills arrived at 3:30 with a court stenographer. If we're going to confront them with evidence, we need official documentation of their responses. At exactly 4 p.m., Tyler and Amanda walked into the conference room. They'd obviously been arguing. Amanda's makeup was smudged. Tyler's shirt was wrinkled. They stopped abruptly when they saw the presentation setup. "Dad, what is this?" "This is the truth, Tyler. Please have a seat." Amanda immediately pulled out her phone to record, just like she had yesterday. "Actually, Amanda, this time we'll be doing the recording." I gestured to the stenographer and her equipment. For the first time since I'd known her, Amanda looked genuinely afraid. I learned how to record from Amanda. "Tyler, Amanda, thank you for coming. Let's begin with financial transparency." I clicked to the first presentation slide, a bank statement showing the initial $28 million loan authorization. Tyler's face went white. "Dad, I can explain." "No explanations necessary, son. The documents speak for themselves." I clicked to the next slide, his forged signature, magnified to show the careful practice strokes. Amanda was frantically typing on her phone, but her confident demeanor was cracking. "Amanda," I said calmly, "I'd like to introduce you to someone." I gestured to Patricia, who opened her laptop and turned the screen toward them. "Meet Amanda Richardson, daughter of James Richardson, CEO of Richardson Industrial. Graduated from Northwestern with a degree in industrial psychology. Specialized training in corporate intelligence gathering." Amanda's face went gray. Tyler turned to stare at her. "What is he talking about?" Tyler's voice was barely a whisper. "Amanda's real name, education history, family connections, employment background, all documented by a private investigator over the past week." I clicked through photos of Amanda at Richardson Industrial Company events, business conferences with competitors, social media posts, celebrating successful strategic partnerships with companies that had been stealing our contracts. "Tyler, your wife isn't Amanda Brooks. She's Amanda Richardson, and she married you to gain access to our company secrets." Tyler stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair. "Amanda, tell him this is wrong. Tell him they made a mistake." Amanda's phone clattered to the floor. She looked directly at Tyler, and for the first time her mask completely dropped. "Tyler," she said quietly, "I'm sorry. It started as a business assignment, but I didn't expect—" She couldn't finish the sentence. For the first time in a month, Tyler called me Dad. "Dad?" Tyler whispered, his voice breaking. "I had no idea. I swear to God, I had no idea." Amanda was crying now, her careful composure completely shattered. "Tyler, you have to understand. My father's company was struggling. He asked me to get close to someone at Brooks Manufacturing to learn about your operations. It was supposed to be temporary." "You used me," Tyler said, staring at her in disbelief. "You married me to spy on my father's company. It wasn't supposed to go this far. I was supposed to gather basic information and report back, but then I fell in love with you, and everything got complicated. I felt no satisfaction watching this confrontation, only sadness for my son's pain." "Amanda," I said quietly, "the cryptocurrency investments, the loan applications, did you know Tyler was committing fraud?" She nodded miserably. "My father said it was the only way to access enough capital to make the industrial espionage profitable. Tyler thought he was being entrepreneurial. I thought we could make it work and pay everything back." Tyler sank back into his chair, his head in his hands. $28 million. Jesus Christ, what have I done? Jonathan Mills cleared his throat. "Based on this confession, I'm legally obligated to inform you that both of you are likely facing federal charges. Corporate espionage, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit theft." "Dad," Tyler looked at me with genuine desperation. "What happens now?" I studied my son's face. The arrogance was gone. The manipulation was gone. This was the first honest conversation we'd had in months. "The company stays in proper hands," I said. "Patricia will serve as interim CEO while we determine the best path forward." 3 days later, I walked through my office for what I thought might be the last time. 40 years of memories packed into cardboard boxes. Photos, awards, mementos from business trips and successful projects. My assistant Jenny helped me carry everything to the parking lot. She'd been crying intermittently all morning. "Mr. Brooks, this doesn't feel right. This is your company." Jenny, sometimes stepping away, is the healthiest choice for everyone involved. The senior management team gathered in the lobby to say goodbye. Awkward hugs, promises to stay in touch, expressions of support that felt genuine despite the complicated circumstances. Patricia walked me to my car. "Chad, you know this is temporary, right? Once the legal situation resolves, the board expects you back." I loaded the last box into my trunk. "Patricia, I'm 63 years old. Maybe it's time for fresh leadership anyway. Not like this. Not because of family drama and criminal fraud." Driving away from Brooks Manufacturing felt surreal. The building grew smaller in my rearview mirror until it disappeared completely. For the first time in 40 years, I had nowhere to be on a Wednesday morning. No meetings, no crisis to resolve, no employees depending on my decisions. The silence was deafening. But underneath, the sadness was something unexpected. Relief. I'd been carrying the weight of the entire company for so long, I'd forgotten what it felt like to be responsible only for myself. Freedom has the taste of both victory and loss. Tyler came to my house the following Sunday, alone. No Amanda, no lawyers, no hidden agendas, just my son, looking older than his 28 years, carrying the weight of consequences he was finally beginning to understand. "Dad, can we talk?" We sat on the back porch where Kelsey used to tend her garden. Tyler stared at his hands for a long time before speaking. "I've been in therapy this week, court-mandated counseling before the trial. The psychologist helped me understand how Amanda manipulated me." I waited. This was Tyler's conversation to lead. "She targeted my insecurities about living up to your success. Every time I felt confident about something, she'd find a way to make me question myself, make me feel like I needed to prove I was better than the previous generation." Son, you never needed to prove anything to me." "I know that now, but Amanda was so good at making me feel like I was disappointing everyone. You, her, myself. She convinced me that dramatic action was the only way to demonstrate leadership." Tyler looked up at me for the first time. "Dad, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for humiliating you in front of your employees. I'm sorry for stealing from the company. I'm sorry for breaking your trust." The tears were genuine. This wasn't manipulation or performance. This was my son taking responsibility for his actions. I know I destroyed everything, but I want you to know that I finally understand what you tried to teach me about character and integrity. I reached over and hugged him for the first time in months. Tyler, I love you. Mistakes don't change that. First genuine hug in years. 6 months after the confrontation, my life had settled into a new rhythm. I'd bought a small RV and was slowly working my way through the national parks that Kelsey and I had always planned to visit. Yosemite in spring, the Grand Canyon at sunset, Yellowstone with early morning mist rising off the geysers. Kelsey would have loved this adventure. Patricia called every week with company updates. Brooks Manufacturing was thriving under her leadership. Revenue up 23%. Employee satisfaction at an all-time high. New contracts with 3 major aerospace companies. Chad, you built something amazing here. The foundation is so solid that it survived a major crisis and came back stronger. I'd also started volunteer work with a small business development center, helping young entrepreneurs avoid the legal and financial mistakes that could destroy their companies. Protect your assets, I'd tell them. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. Even family can surprise you. Tyler was working his way through the legal system. Plea agreement, community service, restitution payments. He'd gotten a job at a small manufacturing company, starting at entry level, learning humility the hard way. We had lunch once a month. Honest conversations about business, family, the future, slowly rebuilding trust that might take years to fully restore. Amanda had disappeared completely after the divorce proceedings. Last anyone heard, she'd moved to California to start a consulting business. Some people never learn, but Tyler was different. The crisis had forced him to confront his character in ways that success never could have. Sometimes losing everything is how you find yourself. Now I want to ask you something. If you discovered your own child had been manipulated into betraying you, what would you do? Fight back or try to forgive? Let me know your thoughts, because what I did next surprised even me. The federal investigation into Richardson Industrial revealed a pattern of corporate espionage spanning multiple industries. Amanda wasn't their first planted operative. She was part of a systematic campaign to infiltrate family businesses and extract proprietary information. The FBI found evidence of similar schemes targeting 3 other manufacturing companies over the past 5 years. In each case, young female operatives had developed romantic relationships with heirs to family businesses, gathered intelligence, and facilitated hostile takeover attempts. James Richardson's company was built on stolen intellectual property. When the full scope of the criminal enterprise became public, Richardson Industrial's clients fled immediately. Their bank credit was revoked. Their insurance policies were canceled for fraud violations. The company that had spent 3 years trying to destroy Brooks Manufacturing collapsed within 6 weeks of the federal investigation announcement. Amanda accepted a plea deal in exchange for testimony against her father's operation. 5 years probation, lifetime ban from working in manufacturing industries, permanent prohibition from corporate advisory roles. She'd built her entire identity around manipulation and deception. When those skills became liabilities instead of assets, she had nothing left. James Richardson received 12 years in federal prison for conspiracy, wire fraud, and industrial espionage. At 62 years old, he would likely spend the rest of his productive life behind bars. The irony was profound. Richardson Industrial's aggressive strategy to eliminate competitors had eliminated themselves. Sometimes the best revenge is simply allowing criminals to face the consequences of their choices. Richardson Company was also bankrupted by failed scheme. Tyler's legal consequences were severe but fair. The federal prosecutor recommended a lenient sentence in exchange for his cooperation with the investigation and his genuine remorse. 18 months in minimum security federal prison, 5 years probation, full restitution of the $28 million through structured payments over 15 years. All of Tyler's assets were seized. The apartment, the Tesla, the investment accounts Amanda had encouraged him to open. Everything liquidated to begin repaying the company he'd defrauded. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Amanda's legal team tried to claim half of Tyler's remaining assets, arguing that she'd been an unknowing victim of her father's criminal enterprise. Tyler's attorney demolished that argument with evidence from her own communications, text messages planning intelligence-gathering operations, email updates to Richardson Industrial about Brooks Manufacturing's internal operations, financial records showing direct payments for corporate information. Amanda walked away from the marriage with nothing but legal chads and a permanently damaged reputation. Tyler was living in a studio apartment, working 40 hours a week at Patterson Manufacturing, earning $38,000 annually, from corporate heir to factory floor in less than a year. But something had changed in him. The arrogance was gone. The entitlement was gone. He was learning to take pride in honest work, in earning respect through effort rather than demanding it through birthright. During our monthly lunches, Tyler would tell me about his co-workers, the satisfaction of meeting production quotas, the genuine friendships he was building with people who had no idea about his family background. "Dad, I understand now what you tried to teach me about earning success instead of expecting it." Tyler finally learns what I tried to teach. Patricia's leadership transformed Brooks Manufacturing in ways I hadn't anticipated. With the family drama resolved and the financial crisis behind us, the company's true potential emerged. 6 months after taking over as CEO, Patricia had implemented operational improvements that increased efficiency by 31%. Employee turnover dropped to near zero. Client satisfaction reached record levels. The senior management team that had witnessed Tyler's boardroom coup became fiercely loyal to Patricia's transparent, collaborative leadership style. No more family politics, no more succession uncertainty, just professional focus on building excellent products and serving customers. Brooks Manufacturing won 3 major contracts that had previously gone to competitors. Our reputation for reliability and innovation attracted new clients from industries we'd never served before. "Chad, you should see the company now," Patricia told me during one of her updates. "The energy is incredible. People are excited to come to work. They're proposing improvements, taking initiative, thinking like owners instead of employees." The financial turnaround was remarkable. Revenue up 23%. Profit margins improved by 18%. Cash reserves at the highest level in company history. Most importantly, we'd established succession planning that prioritized merit over family connections. Patricia was training 2 potential successors based on their leadership abilities and business acumen, not their bloodlines. The company I'd built was finally reaching its full potential under leadership that prioritized competence over nepotism. Sometimes the greatest gift a founder can give their company is stepping aside at exactly the right moment, even involuntarily. Every decision I made was correct. The business community's response to the Richardson industrial scandal was swift and decisive. Local media covered the story extensively, portraying Brooks Manufacturing as a victim of sophisticated corporate espionage. Industry associations invited me to speak at conferences about protecting family businesses from infiltration tactics. "Trust but verify" became my standard presentation title. The Seattle Business Journal published a feature article, "How Legal Preparation Saved a Family Business." My paranoid insistence on comprehensive corporate protections was suddenly viewed as prescient wisdom. 3 universities asked me to guest lecture about business ethics and family succession planning. Young entrepreneurs sought my advice about structuring legal protections for their companies. "Mr. Brooks, how did you know to include those safeguards in your corporate charter?" "I didn't know," I'd tell them. "But I prepared for possibilities I hoped would never happen. That preparation saved everything I'd built." My reputation evolved from outdated businessman to experienced strategist who had successfully defended his life's work against sophisticated threats. The extended family finally understood the full scope of what had happened. Cousins, in-laws, and family friends who had previously viewed me as overly harsh toward Tyler now recognized that I'd been protecting legitimate business interests against criminal activity. Sunday dinners became celebrations of survival rather than discussions of family conflict. Margaret, Kelsey's sister, apologized for initially defending Amanda. "Chad, you saw through her act long before the rest of us. Your instincts were right. Sometimes vindication comes slowly, but it comes completely. Experience becomes teaching moment for next generation of entrepreneurs." 1 year after the confrontation, Patricia called with unexpected news. "Chad, Jonathan Mills needs to see you immediately. He says it's about something Kelsey left behind." I drove to Jonathan's office with no idea what to expect. Kelsey had been gone for 5 years. What could she possibly have left that hadn't already been resolved? Jonathan's conference room felt oddly formal for a late afternoon meeting. He placed a sealed envelope on the table between us. "Kelsey gave this to me 3 months before she passed away," Jonathan said quietly, "with very specific instructions about when to open it. The envelope was labeled in Kelsey's careful handwriting. For Chad, open only if Tyler betrays the family business. My hands shook as I broke the seal. Kelsey's letter was brief but devastating in its accuracy. My dearest Chad, if you're reading this, then Tyler has disappointed us both in ways I hoped would never happen. I've watched our son struggling with entitlement and insecurity. I've seen how easily he could be manipulated by someone who understood his weaknesses. You are not responsible for Tyler's choices. You gave him every advantage, every opportunity, every expression of love that a father could provide. His actions reflect his character, not your parenting. Be strong. Protect what you built. Don't let guilt override your business judgment. Sometimes the greatest act of love is allowing someone to face the consequences of their decisions. I believe in you. I believe in the values we shared. I believe that justice and mercy can coexist. Tyler will need you after he falls, but first, he needs to fall completely. All my love forever. Kelsey, P.S. Trust Patricia. She sees what I saw. Even to heaven, she was protecting me. Kelsey's letter forced me to confront the parenting decisions I'd been questioning for months. Had I been too generous, too trusting, too willing to overlook warning signs in the name of unconditional love? The answer was both yes and no. Yes, I'd enabled Tyler's entitlement by removing every obstacle from his path. Yes, I'd mistaken providing opportunities for teaching responsibility. Yes, I'd prioritized his comfort over his character development. But no, I wasn't responsible for his criminal choices. Adults make their own decisions about integrity, regardless of their upbringing. Kelsey had seen the pattern developing years before I recognized it. Her letter revealed conversations we'd never had, observations she'd kept to herself, concerns about Tyler's character that she'd hoped would resolve naturally. Chad's working so hard to give Tyler everything, she'd apparently told Jonathan during one of their legal meetings. But sometimes everything isn't what a child needs. The greatest business lesson I'd learned wasn't about corporate strategy or financial management. It was about boundaries. Successful relationships require limits, consequences, and mutual respect. Love without boundaries becomes enabling. Generosity without expectations becomes exploitation. Trust without verification becomes vulnerability. I'd spent 40 years building legal protections for my business while ignoring the need for emotional protections in my family relationships. Kelsey understood that Tyler's growth required adversity, accountability, and the opportunity to fail without immediate rescue. The hardest lesson for any parent: sometimes the greatest gift you can give your child is saying no. Sometimes the greatest gift is saying no. 2 years after the crisis, Tyler and I met for lunch at a small diner near his apartment. He looked healthier than he had in years. Clear eyes, genuine smile, the kind of confidence that comes from earning respect rather than demanding it. "Dad, I got a promotion," he said, unable to hide his pride. "Shift supervisor. 12 people reporting to me." "Congratulations, son. How does it feel to lead a team?" "Completely different from what I expected. These people have been doing this work for years. I'm learning more from them than they're learning from me." Tyler had spent 18 months in minimum security federal prison, where he'd completed a bachelor's degree in manufacturing engineering and attended extensive counseling about relationship manipulation and financial decision-making. "The therapy helped me understand how Amanda exploited my insecurities," Tyler explained. "But more importantly, it helped me understand why I was so vulnerable to exploitation in the first place." He'd been clean and sober for 2 years, having discovered that his poor judgment extended beyond financial decisions to substance abuse problems I'd never recognized. "I was using alcohol to cope with the pressure of living up to your success. Drinking made it easier to justify increasingly bad decisions. Our relationship was different now, based on honesty rather than expectation, respect rather than entitlement, earned trust rather than assumed loyalty." "Dad, I know I can never undo the damage I caused. But I want you to know that everything you taught me about integrity and hard work finally makes sense." Tyler was paying restitution at $2,000 monthly. At that rate, it would take him 15 years to fully repay the $28 million he'd stolen. "It's a good reminder," he said. "Every month, I remember the cost of poor choices. My son is finally becoming a man. At 65, I found a life I never expected to want. Traveling with Kelsey's memory, contributing to causes we both cared about, sharing hard-earned wisdom with entrepreneurs who can benefit from my mistakes. The memoir I'm writing isn't about business success. It's about the intersection of family and finance, the complexity of love and accountability, the necessity of protecting what you build while remaining open to the people you care about most. Patricia runs Brooks Manufacturing with the competence and integrity I'd always hoped to inspire in Tyler. Under her leadership, the company has expanded into international markets, developed innovative manufacturing processes, and established a reputation for ethical business practices that attracts top-tier clients. Chad, you should be proud, Patricia tells me during our quarterly updates. The foundation you built has supported growth beyond anything you originally imagined. Tyler's future remains uncertain but hopeful. His federal conviction will limit some opportunities, but his commitment to rebuilding his life through honest work has impressed employers and coworkers who value integrity over credentials. We're discussing the possibility of Tyler returning to Brooks Manufacturing in some capacity after he completes his restitution payments, not as heir to a dynasty, but as an employee who has earned his position through demonstrated competence and character.
If that happens, I told Patricia, it will be your decision, not mine. Tyler will need to prove himself to you, just like any other job candidate. That's how it should be. Merit-based evaluation, earned trust, professional standards that apply equally to family members and strangers. Building something that truly lasts requires foundations stronger than blood relationships. Building something that truly lasts. If this story resonated with you, make sure to subscribe for more tales of quiet justice and family accountability. And if you're dealing with disrespect in your own family, remember, it's never too late to reclaim your dignity. Hit that notification bell for more stories of people who refuse to be doormats. The truth about family businesses is this: love and accountability aren't opposites. They're partners. You can love someone completely while refusing to enable their destructive behavior. I learned that respect isn't inherited. It's earned through consistent actions over time. Character can't be purchased with opportunities or advantages. Integrity develops through facing consequences, not avoiding them. To every parent watching this, every entrepreneur building something meaningful, every person who has ever been taken advantage of by someone they trusted completely, you don't have to accept disrespect. You don't have to choose between love and boundaries. Sometimes the greatest act of love is protecting what you've built. Sometimes the greatest act of love is saying enough. I finally have my dignity back. 3 months ago, Tyler called with news I hadn't expected. He'd been promoted again, this time to operations manager at Patterson Manufacturing. His supervisors were impressed with his leadership skills, his attention to detail, his commitment to ethical business practices. Dad, they're sending me to a management training program. The company is investing in my professional development. For the first time in years, Tyler was building a future based on his own merits. As I finish this story, I'm sitting in the same kitchen where I received Patricia's panicked phone call 3 years ago. The morning light streams through windows that Kelsey used to love, illuminating photos of a family that has survived betrayal and emerged stronger. The lesson isn't complicated. Protect what you build. Trust, but verify. Love people enough to hold them accountable for their actions. And remember that sometimes losing everything is the only way to find out what really matters. To everyone listening, what boundaries do you need to set in your own life? What boundaries do you need to set?